everyone. Welcome back to the Rebel Crow Psychic Show with your host, Athena Silver. We have a fantastic guest on. We're going to be talking all about the consciousness of plants, plant medicine, and working with the spirits of the plants. We will be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We have a great author on today. Her name is Emma Farrell, and her book is Journey Through Plant Spirits, all about plant consciousness, healing, and natural magic practices. Thanks for coming on, Emma. It's fantastic to speak to you about this amazing book. It was so interesting to read.
Oh, hi. Thank you. It's a real honor to be on your show, and I'm so pleased you enjoyed the book.
Oh, I definitely did. Especially the part where you're talking about working with the plants and introducing them in a one-on-one fashion. That was very interesting part of the book. You know, spoiler alert for anybody. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How do you bring knowledge into this great practice? Like, where does it come from for you?
It comes from spending time with the plants. So the book itself outlines the basic structure of how I get to know the plants on a spiritual and metaphysical level. Mm-hmm. And I've just done that for many years. And so the book outlines how to work with the medicine wheel, but how to do plant diets as well. So how to spend a certain amount of time, and it could be anything from like 3 days to a month or longer, a few months. So the book outlines how to perform a plant diet. And this is a period of time that you set to spend time with a plant and to get to know it, and one individual plant. And so it could be anything from 3 days up to a year. And so generally I like to do a lunar month so that I can experience the plant through all my kind of fluctuations of energies throughout the month. But this is how we get to know plants on both a physical and a metaphysical level. And it's really the metaphysical level that I've been really interested in. Although herbalism, of course, is, and the botany, etc., is very valid in its own right and is important to have a basis in that, from which you then build on to get to know the holistic plant. But so my knowledge and kind of wisdom, I suppose, comes directly from the plant. And so the book introduces how to start to get to know the plants, and how to then you just repeat that process as much as you like. And then as time's gone on, I've worked with the plant spirits in a very co-creational way to help my clients as well. So it's moved from kind of working for myself individually to then helping others.
I love that. It definitely comes across in the book. I agree with you. Working with the plant throughout the month makes a big difference, because we do pull energies at different times of the lunar sway. But I've noticed that with this book, I love how you go back to square one, to basics, to why these practices are important and where they come from. You included a lot of really interesting traditions. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I work within the Celtic tradition. I've got Celtic blood, I live in Celtic lands, and so I work with Celtic plants, and I work with the Celtic Medicine Wheel. And so even though the medicine wheel has been worked with since beginnerless time, I think.
Absolutely.
It's one of those systems that it's got a true tradition in that it doesn't have any beginning, really. Mm-hmm. And it's just widespread because it just encapsulates all that is. It's based on the 4 directions or the 7 directions, and there are many different medicine wheels in different cultures. Like the Native American culture, for instance, is very similar. The Celtic tradition that I work within, and again, you don't have to do this, everybody can choose their own magical system, but it's just such a profound mode of understanding our life and reality, and really bringing that kind of sacredness into the work. Because when we approach the plant spirits, this is a sacred work that we're doing.
Absolutely.
And when we approach them in this way, that's when they respond. And we have to really get back to that sacredness within us. And so by working with ritual, by working with the medicine wheel to encapsulate your ritual and bringing it down into the earth plane, all of your intentions, etc., then it really helps give us a connection between the physical world and the spiritual world, which we really need. Because
and it's important. It's important work to do it that way.
Yeah, and we've really seemed to have lost connection, especially in the West. And so it's a great way to get back in contact with that.
Absolutely. I was interested. I didn't know the Celtics had your own kind of wheel, because I was familiar with the medicine wheel through Native American practice and curanderismo. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
Yes,
it's folk healing through the Native American traditions in the Southwest, and it's found a lot in Central Mexico, Central America, South America, and also the Caribbean, which is where my knowledge comes from, the Caribbean.
Right. Okay. Wow.
But I had no idea that you guys, the wheel made it all the way across over there.
Well, I think it's all over the world.
Absolutely.
And I think in the Celtic tradition, really, it comes from the Celtic cross, the cross with the medicine wheel with the cross within the circle. This used to be known as the fairy crossroads in these lands, because you can open it as a portal to go into the other world. And we have a very rich history and folklore of the other world traditions in the British Isles. And so that really comes through when you start working with this device, if you like, the medicine wheel in its traditional form, because you're tapping into the morphogenetic field of the medicine wheel within that tradition. And so all of that our ancestors have put in, all of the work that they've done themselves and all those connections they've made, and very much so through the plants, then we can tap into that wisdom as well. And so, we're not just kind of working in isolation. We can really thank our ancestors and be honored to be walking in their footsteps by working in the same way as them.
It's truly ingenious how they came up with this concept like thousands of years ago. And it's such a roadmap when you're doing any kind of inner work. You know exactly where you're going to go. And when you introduce plants into it, it's just, it goes together so seamlessly, which is why, I was so drawn to that part of your book. I just never put those two together. And then when you laid it out the way that you did, I was like, oh, those things go together.
Yeah, there's correspondences between plants, planets, directions, times of day. And so I just work with the correspondences within the plant and the associations that the plant has to those directions and planets, etc., so that you can start to understand the energetic framework of that particular plant that you're working with works within. So you can start to really understand the plant when you understand all its correspondences and its folklore. I really like diving into the folklore of a plant because it really brings it alive, and so you can really start to understand its spirit. You have to be a little bit careful with folklore because some of it comes from a fear perspective, but the early folklore is really based in a lot of wisdom of what the plants can do on that kind of magical and metaphysical level. So but it's important not to be kind of limited to that, because the plants evolve as well, and so we're creating our own folklore today, I suppose.
But I'm always partial to the darker sides of folklore because it's a cautionary lesson. Those stories come about when people reach further than they should, go further, into the unknown than they should. And we get great stories about the forest and the trees. And, it's fear-based, but it's spiritual as well.
Absolutely, and there's a shadow side to everything, so we have to accept that we live in this world of duality, and we have to balance that, the darkness as well as the light. We can't be just kind of so drawn to the light and we just bypass the shadow, because the shadow is actually where all the good stuff is.
Oh, I have the inner workings of a serious cave witch. If we were back in the day, I'd be in my cave with my fire.
I'd probably be joining you, because I'm always drawn to the shadow plants, the plants that really take you into those kind of shadowy places within the psyche that can really help you to shine a light of awareness, onto those hidden aspects of yourself that we've been kind of fearful of looking at. But
Absolutely.
what plants do, and all plants do this, they help to show us, and they help to reflect our consciousness back at us, so that we can see ourselves more clearly and resolve those issues within ourselves that we just kind of been sweeping under the carpet a little bit, or, not wanting to look at. But when we look at them, we remember something about ourselves that we'd forgotten. And so when we look at all the different plants and what they do on this kind of spiritual level, and this emotional level, they really help us. They're so benevolent to this place of balance and harmony within nature, which where we've come from, and hopefully where we're going back to.
So tell me, are you a gardener yourself? What do you grow?
A little bit of a gardener. I do enjoy growing plants. I grow medicine plants, obviously. I grow a lot.
Likewise.
I grow a lot of artemisias. So I've got a big big kind of plantation that's just gone into before the winter to kind of root in, and then that'll be ready. That'll just kind of grow itself through from the spring onwards. But mugwort, wormwood, a lot of wild St. John's wort I'm cultivating as well, mullein. So just a lot of the medicine plants, really. But
hearing that tells me exactly what kind of healer you are. I can tell you work with protection stuff.
Well, the plants are protective for a reason. Yeah, they're usually the most transformational plants, and they're the ones that I'm interested in. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm a rosemary girl over here.
Okay,
and sage.
beautiful.
I grow a lot of different varieties of sage.
Wow.
I have this thing where I like to grow what I use during the year, so that I'm not buying it and bringing energy from other places into my medicine. So I have a little bit of everything. I have like an all-purpose garden where I can basically change the world with whatever the couple of plants that I got in the back.
Well,
they're all very purposeful.
Yeah, I also gather a lot from the wild. I work a lot with the wild plants, and I've kind of moved the mugwort from the wild into my garden, so that I don't have to travel so far to collect it, because I use a lot of mugwort for protection, for psychic work, for dream work, etc. And so Artemisia vulgaris is
everywhere up here around me.
Oh, really?
Everywhere. You find it on the roadside, you find it in backyards, you find it in vacant lots, you find it everywhere around here. And people have no idea that it's such a powerful medicine. So I have this thing with my best friend in the summertime. We drive around, I'm like, mugwort, mugwort, mugwort. We'll stop, we'll take a clipping of it. We call it drive-by gardening.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, we have a lot of mugwort growing down the central reservation of the motorways, and and she grows a lot by the riverbanks around here, actually. So but one thing I'm surprised about is that we don't get much wormwood, the Artemisia absinthium, growing very much in the British Isles anymore, which is a real shame, because it's a really hardy plant, and it's very powerful, especially in these times. It's anti-parasitic.
Yes.
And so we all know what antiparasitics are good for at the moment. So so wormwood is really kind of the plant of the moment for me, with me and my clients. And so on a metaphysical level, she also cleanses and purifies and releases all those parasitic energies, as well as the parasitic entities that are everywhere at the moment, because society's become very, very toxic, and so we have to kind of adapt, and so I like to work with the plants that are of the moment, and what myself and my clients need.
Absolutely. Well, you seem to collect them over the years. You start these diets and you get to know them, and then all of a sudden somebody needs something else, so you learn it, and then you look back and you're like, wow, I'm a living catalog of this information after a while. You know, you become an encyclopedia yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I have about in the book, I've kind of written about 13 plants specifically in the second part of the book. And I generally work with about 13, 14 plant spirits, plant and tree spirits. And that's all I seem to need. And I can generally deal with most energetic things with those particular plants, with just that group of plant spirits. And so I work with the plant spirits to remove toxicities from my clients' energy fields, to to kind of remove entities, to remove attachments, intrusions, etc. And so the plant spirits are really amazing at helping with that. And mugwort, of course, she's just got such a huge broad spectrum of abilities that when you get into the metaphysical world as well, which is why she's the witch's first herb.
Absolutely.
She just does so many things. She's a really amazing ally to have.
I feel like she's up there with my number one plant, which is cannabis. Cannabis is like a miracle when it comes to how many different things it treats. And even I've come to use it metaphysically as well, which a lot of people don't realize, that the spirit of her, she's still there, it's just people forgot that you can connect with her on a spirit level.
And how do you work with her on a spiritual level?
Well, I was taught sacred smoke through working with my ancestor spirits, because I'm native myself to the Americas and the Caribbean specifically. And for us, smoking and the ritual burning of herbs and of plants is really big. So I started there, and it became smoking with the plant, smoking with the spirit, burning it, using it as offering, trying the different varieties that the plant itself comes in, and understanding that certain parts of the plant harmonize differently depending on the strain that you're using, and how to attune yourself spiritually to her energies. It's finally making a resurgence, but it was lost for many, many years.
Yeah, I find with cannabis that it just opens up your psychic channels.
For real.
For me, it just opens up a direct channel to my higher self, to my eternal spirit. And so if I've got a problem or an issue, you can smoke cannabis, or you can make cannabis butter if you don't want to smoke. And that kind of opens up what I call a shamanic space, where I can just sink into this space of just being completely in communication with the spirit to help me, to guide me in the right direction. And what she does, it's like she kind of imparts this kind of like, as soon as you hit on the answer to something, it just goes in like a gnosis. It goes in like
realism. She gives you reality, like right what you need to know, whether you want to know it or not.
Absolutely. But it's really important, like you said, that it's ceremonial. That's how we approach the plant spirits, to work within this way. It's this ritual of burning, of meditating, of opening a sacred space with it, and and just really setting a strong intention. Because what I find is, with any plant or tree spirit that I'm working with, its intention is really important as well. And so by approaching the plants in this really conscious way, we can receive so many teachings from them, and insights about our life that are so useful and beneficial. And it's just I just don't know what my life would be without the plants, really.
I agree with you. Like, I've had full-blown religious experiences with working with cannabis and different plant medicines, to the point where learning things about myself many lifetimes ago that I didn't even know, and coming to know who I really am, and things of that nature. Like, the plants teach it to you. I noticed that when it comes to spirits, I'm a medium myself. So I deal with a lot of different types of spirits, but when it comes to plant spirits, I feel like they give you honesty first. They don't really mess around and try to play with you all that much.
No, I mean, you might not understand what they're trying to tell you.
Yes,
You
but
know,
they're being honest about it.
yeah, exactly. And it might take you a while to work it out. And sometimes it's taken months or, years later. I'm like, oh, that's what they meant. That's what I saw, because sometimes you get these visions and
Yes.
it's difficult to sometimes especially if you're in the thick of something, it's difficult to see the wood for the trees. And so you can't, you're interpreting what you're seeing through a kind of a bias filter. But when but it's quite often with the plant spirits, they're telling you a truth that you can't quite accept until you're ready to accept it. And
but
so
it's us. It's us.
but it's
We're the
us.
problem.
Yes, exactly. So as soon as you've got out the way with your stuff, then you can
They're like, put your human side aside and let's get to business. I love it.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk to somebody who's experiencing plants very similarly to me. It's this book needed to be written.
Sorry.
It really did.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really timely how it came about for lockdown to write the book, and so I had lockdown, and I wrote it in 6 months, and then took an extra 2 for editing, and I just sat and wrote the book because it was hot over here in the UK at that time, and I'd been given all this time, so I was like, okay, wow, I've been given a real gift here by the plant spirits themselves. I feel, they really held me in that process because it was my first book, and so I'd never written anything close to that length. Okay, I've written a thesis, for my degrees,
but that's different, and
different,
especially because of the amount of heart that comes through in this book. It's all heart.
Thank you.
I, as somebody who works with plants, like reading it, like I could see where your head was at, and where your thinking was, and it was interesting, because there are a lot of books about plants that are out there, but it's not about plants on a spirit level. It's about plants like, oh, well, this is good for cough, and you put it in cough syrup, and you could give it to your family, and but it's like, but why would you use that plant specifically? Like, what is it about the spirit of that plant that's calling to the healing? So this fills in a lot of gaps.
Yeah, I think there's been a kind of an overuse of the term plant ally, because I think it's kind of watered it down what it actually means. And so people quite often say, oh, my, elder is my plant ally whenever I've got a cough starting or a cold coming on. And that's great, I'm sure she is, but plant ally actually means that you are in co-creation with the spirit of the plant, that you know the spirit level of the plant, and that you are connected to it in some way, and you're working co-creatively with it, and that you know it, and you've nurtured a relationship with it. And so it's working on a much more finer vibration of the plant from the emotional level within the human self, right up to the spiritual level. And some of the plants can, really connect you to really divine vibrations. I work with Angelica, Archangelica, which is such a beautiful plant and really connects you to those angelic realms, and so, but they're powerful realms. People also misinterpret the angelic realms. And in here in the British Isles, the angelic realms in our tradition are the high elves. So it's the elven realm. And so it's a similar realm, but it's kind of parallel to the angelic realm, but it's just, they're elves rather than angels.
See, I am an underworld kind of girl. If you're going to find me, you're going to find me in the dirt in the underworld. I keep to my business to myself. The other world is just a little, the upper world is just a little too cosmic for me.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm very earth-based myself. So that's why I think I'm a triple Virgo. So I can access the earthly realms and the inner realms of the earth very easily. So I think that's, although I have this connection to the high elves, it's the earthly realms that really draw me in.
Yeah, they're the ones that make sense to me. When we get up into the elfin realms and up there, I'm kind of like, I'm out of my element. I'm supposed to be on Earth or under it. Tell me a little bit about your craft. How do you experience your side of spirituality, how would you describe yourself? Because we're a witchcraft and spirituality channel here. We have a lot of pagans on here. We have a lot of witches on here. So I always like to ask, talk about your personal craft a little bit if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's developed and changed and evolved over the years. And I started off on a spiritual path before I even discovered the plants and the amazing realm of the plants. But I've meditated for many, many years. I've studied Buddhism, did a master's degree in practicing Buddhism, and but I'm no longer in that tradition. But the essence of Buddhism and is just pure truth. And so for me, I've always been interested in the mind and how the mind works. And so Buddhism just felt like, they're masters at this kind of thing and knowing the mind. Well, so I thought, and then once I kind of studied that and then moved, I was living overseas for a long time. And then I moved back home to the British Isles after 15 years and realized that everything I'd been studying overseas in India and in my master's degree actually was already, that wisdom was already within the land of my own islands. So that's the Celtic tradition. And so I really started diving into the wisdom traditions of my own land and realized that the plants bring that alive. And so, yeah, you could call it witchy, etc. Because when you dive into the plant kingdom through meditation and through this healing perspective of wanting to expand your consciousness and understand yourself much better, I understand spirituality as just understanding the mind.
Yes.
And bringing balance. So during that whole process, the more you work with, when I discovered plants and that started bringing all this spirituality alive for me and started helping me access different parts of my consciousness, then that started awakening all my psychic abilities. It started awakening my understanding of my soul lineage and not just my ancestral lineage. And so it's really started awakening deeper and deeper aspects of myself and my psyche and my kind of reason for being here, my purpose, etc. And so the plants really just awaken us. And so I think my path really has been a path of awakening through the plants, really, and then helping others to do the same.
That's beautiful.
Because once you start to understand these things and you become psychic, yes, you want to share it with people, but also you realize that it's a gift, and there it's a responsibility, and so therefore you want to be in service to that. You want to be in service to that the greater good, and to help others. So yeah, that's where I come from.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. I mean, I agree with you 100%. My path is very similar to that. I found Buddhism first for whatever reason. I came to reading books written by the Dalai Lama when I was in like middle school and high school, trying to fix some stuff inside. And it grew from there. I come from a family that we've been practicing for many years. So most of us are gifted in some kind of way. But it wasn't till I started really focusing on the plants where I truly went into the journey of like understanding self and like putting pieces back together. And that's what healed me, was working with the plants, working down that path of like self-reflection, but in tandem with the plant. Again, rosemary, that's my plant,
Well, wow, she just awakens all those forgotten memories in the dark corners of your mind, doesn't she? I've had some really amazing experiences of rosemary. Once with one of my teachers, Pam Montgomery, who you might know, she lives in Vermont, and she did as a little kind of rosemary session in one of our training courses. And suddenly, just by smelling rosemary, and had taking us through this shamanic journey, I was racing down this corridor in my mind's eye, and then I emerged into a past life in Egypt. But that just shows you the power of this plant that's been worked with for millennia, and yet people just use to kind of make their potatoes taste better, not realize the vast potential of this just magnificent, beautiful plant.
I always make a point to cook with it when I'm sad. When I'm like feeling depressed and all about myself and my life, I'll make chicken and I'll put rosemary in it, and it always picks me back up. I always feel better after that meal, you know. It satisfies something like emotional in me as well. Again, that's my plant.
Yeah, my turn to for when I'm having a bit of a rough day or a bad day is St. John's wort. That kind of really envelops me in this beautiful kind of light, and just kind of like lifts my spirits a little bit, and tunes me back into my heart so that I can feel that inspiration a little bit again. So yeah, I tend to go towards St. John's wort, but I'm going to try rosemary next time.
Try it. I'm telling you, it'll help. It always does. So tell me, are you going to be writing another book? Do we have anything else that we can expect from you?
Oh, wow. Well, you know, that book is is an introduction to my work, really. So I do have plans to expand it and how to work co-creatively for psychic surgery.
Beautiful.
I work with on a really detailed level to forensically clear my clients' energy fields through just psychically. And I work with all the plant spirits to do that. And so it really kind of, we basically release all of the toxicities from people's energy fields so that they can experience what it's like being in their own energy field on their own with just themselves, because a lot of people carry a lot of attachments or splits and tears in their energy field where life force leaks and things get in.
And a lot of people don't know themselves in that soul capacity anymore. You're right about that. I've seen it myself.
And so this aspect of working with plant spirits for psychic surgery is quite unusual, and so that I'd like to write a book about that someday.
Well, when you do, please come back on our show and let's talk about it. I would love to read it and chat with you again about it.
I would love it.
So tell us a little bit about what you have going on right now. Do you have any classes? Do you have anything you want to shout out?
Oh, thank you. Well, I've got an online course. It's hosted on Thinkific, but you can find it through my website, which is plantconsciousness.com. I'm quite concentrated on my book at the moment and my healing practice. You know, people are really having a hard time at the moment, and so I'm doing a lot of client work at the moment. And I sell a lot of my essences, the essence range that is in the apothecary at plantconsciousness.com as well. And so this is where I'm at the moment, and I like to kind of keep things really simple through the winter. I don't like to kind of exert too much, because I like to take the time to dream in the following year with the plants as well. What do we want to do together next year? How do we want to play, and what do we want to create? So I generally take the winter to do that.
Oh, same here. I'm always planting my garden come January.
Beautiful.
So how can all the viewers stay in touch with you? What are your social media links? You know, how can we keep up with what you've got going on?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I have a Plant Consciousness page on Facebook, but that's about it. I'm not really a social media bunny, I'm afraid. I did have an Instagram page.
We got to get you out there. There's a lot of fun things out there.
Yeah, people just can find me on my website. That's the best thing, really. But Facebook as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been wonderful reading your book. Everybody needs to go out and buy a copy of this. This is a great resource when you're learning how to work with the plant spirits. I highly recommend it, guys. Like, you know me, I tell you the truth. If I don't like it, I'll tell you. But this one I really do like. For everyone, we want to thank Emma for coming. I'm Athena Silver, your host. I'm a professional psychic medium. You can find me at my website, readingswithathenasilver.com. My Facebook is Readings with Athena Silver. My Instagram is athena.silver, and my TikTok is Athena_silver. We do different episodes bi-weekly, available on YouTube and on all podcasting platforms. And we thank you for joining us today. We'll see you not next weekend, but the week after that. Have a great day, everyone.